So then Bruce said, "My mom's name is Martha too," to which Clark replied, and we're back on the build phase. I'm your host, Mr. Ben, and today we are going to be talking about The Dark Knight Returns. Specifically, The Dark Knight Returns, the board game. So, this Kickstarter finally fulfilled over this last week. I'm going to unbox this. We're going to take a look at all the components. We'll have reactions and see how we feel about getting into this box. This is not going to be a full review of the game mechanics because I'm literally opening it right now. Once I have a chance to actually play the game, I will come back and have a full review. This is just going to be looking at the components. So actually, you know what, before I tear into the shrink wrap, let's kind of look at this. So we've got this gold embossed finish here. You can kind of see the reflection of my shelves because of the lighting on the shrink wrap. But it's got like a slipcase cover, very similar to what the Absolute Edition of Dark Knight comes in, or Absolute of any comic. So I like the slip cover design. It kind of slides in here. Man, it can't. I don't even know if I can get the whole thing on the frame. So it's very big. I like the way the spine looks. I like even if you have this side out, it looks good. One thing I don't care for is this is the back side, and notice how there's a cutout here, but there's no bat emblem as there is on the front. I'm hoping once we get into these two boxes, this one is just going to be in there the wrong way and we can have the bat emblem on both sides. Otherwise, why put a big old cutout in my cardboard if you're not going to give me the graphic embellishment there? So anyway, that's first reactions to the box before we get into the shrink wrap. Let's cut this thing open. So I'm going to be real careful here because I don't want to damage my Dark Knight Returns board game. Okay, so right away, the finish on the box looks so much better once we get the shrink wrap off. I did not actually notice that there's kind of a cityscape, which you can see here in the matte finish. So there's gloss down here at the bottom, and Batman is glossy. This has like a beautiful matte finish to it, which has texturing of Gotham City, very faintly painted on with kind of like a black gloss. It looks very cool. The back side, same way. It's basically the same graphic on both sides. The spine is gloss. So let's pull these components out. Try to pull these components out. Oh wow, this feels so snug. Oh wow. Yeah, so there's the bat emblem that I think should be showing through that window. I don't know if all of them were this way or if mine just got mispacked at the factory. All right. I'm going to get these component boxes out of the way for a second, and we're just going to look at the slipcover one last time. So overall, on the inside, there is some artwork, kind of textured black on black on the inside. I cannot really make out what it is. It looks like panels from the comic. I'll assume it's panels from The Dark Knight. Otherwise, that would be from The Dark Knight Returns. Otherwise, that would be pretty weird. This is a good, sturdy cardboard. Feels really nice. Again, this reminds me very much of the Absolute Edition of, like the oversized edition of comics like I had out here earlier, or like the slipcover 4 I have behind me here. All right, so our two component boxes. We got the bat symbol on the back there. Wow. So the aesthetic of this is very impressive. I like the black on black, the grayscale with just the little gold embellishments. It really makes it striking. And this is much heavier. So my guess is this is the game components, and the other one is going to be our paper stuff, like our rule books and such. So we're going to start with this one that has Batman and Robin on it. I'm really looking forward to reading through this comic again. I have not done so in a few years, and then playing the game. And I know, Frank Miller can be a little bit of a problematic figure these days, but it's one of my all-time favorite comic stories. Okay. So there's a magnetic... Oh, this is the miniatures. So there's a magnetic clasp here, which feels good. And then we have our minis. This is huge. So does this come out? And then there's... I hope there wasn't supposed to be something in there, because there's nothing in that one. My guess is that fits on the back of the... Yeah, so this was merely support for that, so there's not something missing. And I think the figure that needed the support was Batman with his awesome cape. I guess before I dive too deep into the minis, let me give this box one quick once over now that we've got the shrink wrap off. So again, I really like this art aesthetic here. I like the black on black bat emblem on the back. Fairly minimalistic in terms of the overall packaging, the graphics on the packaging, which again I think fits the subject matter. I think this looks really cool. So let's look at some miniatures. We got to start with Batman. And he does not disappoint. So this is the chunky, the art aesthetic of the Batfleck. Whatever you think about Affleck as Batman, he looked cool, and it was the Dark Knight Returns aesthetic. I really like how thick he looks. Probably Greg Capullo's Batman is the only other person who does like the wall of meat Batman in this way. Man, I wish I could paint. So we got to look at Joker. Oh, can I get it up to where the camera can actually see his face? Nope, it's not going to take the focus. Well, these sculptures are great. I'm going to have to figure out a camera angle when we do a full review of this game to where we can actually show off how cool these sculptures look. A whole separate one for Armored Batman. Also looks pretty cool. Wow, these are so neat. So the leader of the mutants. Oh, even the horse? We got the Batman horse. One-arm Green Arrow. Oh, I should say before I go any further, spoiler alert. If you haven't read Dark Knight Returns, spoiler alert. Okay, as everybody who hasn't read Dark Knight Returns, okay. We have one-arm Green Arrow here shooting his bow with his teeth. This is my favorite thing in this box so far. Wow, that's cool. Where's Robin? Okay, there's Robin. So I gotta say I'm a little disappointed with the Robin sculpt. I really would have liked to see Robin firing her slingshot. It's kind of her signature pose. You can see it, or maybe pose is the wrong word, but her signature attack is that cool slingshot. Something like this I would have preferred on that sculpt. That's a small criticism. It still looks cool. I think it does the character justice. But, wow. So all of these have great detail. I'm sure it's a little difficult for it to come across on the camera, but I'm very impressed with them so far. I guess I'll take a look at Superman here last. I kind of wish he was a little chunkier. The Superman in the Dark Knight Returns mythology is, again, kind of like the same way Frank Miller drew Batman. Really chunky, like a slab of meat. And this is, like, between Superman and Batman. Well, Batman is chunkier. Yeah, I think Superman should have been a little bit buffer. But overall, I'm really happy with all these minis. I will figure out a way that I can put them on camera so you can actually take a good look at them, because this is not doing it justice. Next up, this is going to be our actual game components. Let's get this shrink wrap off so we can take a good look at the box. Trying my best not to damage the packaging here. So this maintains the theme of taking iconic pieces of art out of the source material, the Dark Knight Returns comic, and doing them with this black on black aesthetic, making use of the difference between the matte and gloss with just the little bit of gold embellishments. Again, I've said this already, but I continue to like this. I think all of the packaging so far has been really striking. We've got gloss on the side, and I'm guessing, yeah, another gloss bat symbol there on the back. So I think this is going to fit back into the slipcase either direction, so you can either have it display with the spine kind of giving you the book, if you're going to go with a vertical display, or if you're going to go with a horizontal display, you can also have it that way. That is a cool little detail. Does the other... same attention to detail on this side, although it doesn't say the game name, it just says DC, and then here it has the game name. So whether you store this vertically or horizontally, In either case, it's gonna be able to be seen, the spine on your game shelf, and it's gonna look cool. Okay, I should confess I'm a massive Batman fan, and when I opened this box and saw this art panel, I'm having a little bit of a fanboy moment. This is really cool looking. Opening this was almost breathtaking to see this art. The blue on black looks very cool. I'm not going to sit here and read the rule book, but I am going to thumb through it just a little bit. You are the Dark Knight. You gave it up, but Gotham has given you no choice but to return again. Okay, so this rulebook is massive. I will say, having this is bigger than the footprint of a playmat, which I'll verify here in a second, but I'm pretty sure this is going to end up being bigger than the playmat. This is going to be a little awkward for your table. If you're someone who is a solo gamer that doesn't have a lot of table space, the look of this board and this instruction book, we're going to be talking about a lot of real estate. And this, it's like the 1950s sitcom dad, like hiding behind the newspaper. It's really big, which I did just kind of gush a little bit about how breathtaking that made this piece of artwork look when I first opened it, this size. So the scale is cool in that way, but in terms of functionally having to look up rules in this rule book, this is a little larger than I generally would like to have sitting there at the table. I am not going to take the time to read through all of this, so I will pass judgment at a later point as to whether this rulebook is actually good at teaching you how to play the game. I just kind of wanted to look through and take a look at the art. Overall, positive first impression. So this is book 2 rules. So player one. So this must be the first issue of the comic. So this includes, oh yeah, I got it now. So this is the core game plus issue 1. So I guess I should lay out, not only spoiler alert for Dark Knight, just looking at the components, but the overall play of this game is you're playing through the plot of the 4-issue miniseries, The Dark Knight Returns. So they have a separate rule book for book 2. Oh man, the art on the cover of these all looks so good. Book 3, and finally book 4, which is the one that I might almost want to skip to and play first because that was my favorite one in the series. So there's all of those instruction books. Standalone missions and versus mode. Okay, so then there's a whole separate book here which is going to tell us how to play 2-player. I am not going to go page by page through all of these at this time, but so that's the way it's all broken up. Maybe there's going to be a reason they took issue 1, 2, 3, 4 and bound them into essentially separate instruction books, and then the way if you want to play non-campaign mode, that's yet a separate instruction book along with versus mode. Perhaps this is an artifact of the Kickstarter. Maybe they were only going to do this version and this was a stretch goal. I didn't actually follow this on Kickstarter. My local game store, which by the way, shout out to Geek City Games and Comics, my local game store backed this on Kickstarter, and that's how I was able to get my hands on it. So I feel like breaking the rules up into this many different books is a little bit, I don't know if I like that, but I'm willing to give them more or less the benefit of the doubt on that. It's not a huge deal. So this is so I guess we store our rule books in here. Okay. So let's do that. Nope. The rule books are not going to fit in there. So what is the point of this thing? I don't know. Maybe this is a game mechanic that I don't yet understand. So these are our punch outs. Oh, look at that dice bag. I don't have quite enough room for all of this here, do I? So this dice bag with the embroidered Batman symbol, this is a little cheesy. I will concede. But I love it. As a Batman fan, this is super cool for me. One thing I am really interested in is the gimmick dice. So these dice that have bat wings on the side of them, so essentially takes a D6 but turns it into a D4. by the addition of these silly batarang things. Throwing these dice, time will tell if it actually ends up being a cool mechanic. I have a feeling this is a little bit gimmicky, but I'm also kind of along for the ride. I love Batman. Throwing dice that look like batarangs is the kind of gimmick that is going to kind of catch my attention, to be honest. So there's several... You know what? Let's get this box out of the way. And then let's actually throw some of these dice and kind of see how they... So I don't know what these blank results are. Presumably those are bad. But as far as like the rolling experience, it doesn't seem... I mean, rolling a triangle-shaped D4, which I've done plenty of times in Dungeons & Dragons, yeah. I mean, if I had a dice tray here so I could give it a little more oomph without having to worry about losing them under my desk, I think these are going to be fine. Even though they are a little bit silly, I don't think the batarang inhibits the dice rolling experience in any kind of significant way. Got a bunch of other more traditional-looking dice here. Don't know what any of those do yet, of course. Here's all our stands. So this looks like our player reminder cards. I guess let's see what the rest of the stuff is in here. So it's interesting that there's 4 round sequence cards, because this is only a 1 to 2 player game. Oh, and there's 5. So I wonder if there's different specific sequences of rounds that are dictated. Yeah, they are. These are going to be scenario specific. Looks like this is all scenario specific stuff. I'm going to endeavor to do my best to not spoiler myself on anything. Obviously, I know the story of what happened in Dark Knight Returns already. Oh, wow, look at this. Open at the end of book 4. Oh, man, my focus went away. So this is like your legacy pack, I guess. Different goal cards. I wonder if there's a different... So there's 4 different Batman decks here. And my guess is that... Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are your 4 issues. I'm assuming you pilot these specific... Like, this is going to be the deck that you use when you're playing with Scenario 1. These look like villain decks. Let's tear some of these open. Where'd my knife go? Alright, so spoiler alert already, like we said, for the plot of Dark Knight Returns. But now, if you want to be able to play through this game and not have any of the game content spoiled, I'm about to look at some of the issue 1 cards. So just fair warning. I'm not going to sit here and read them all, but we are going to look through these. So these are all things that would be familiar to you from the comic. These are the types of characters that you expect to see based on issue 1 of Prototype Batarangs, Dark Knight Returns. So some of these cards look much cooler than others. These cards, we have our detective cards and we have our fight cards here. While this art still comes from Dark Knight Returns and the source material is still good, these blue ones in particular are actually oh, look, you can see the talking head screens like I have all around me. These blue ones are actually a little bit hard to see the art, which is disappointing because it's art that, I mean, well, maybe by contemporary standards it's showing its age a little bit now, but it's art that I loved when I first read this and continue to be a pretty big fan of to this day. I've got this dry erase marker here. I'm not sure what that's going to end up being for. Obviously scorekeeping of some kind. All right. So before we wrap this up, I don't think I'm going to look at every single card here because there is some story elements to this and I don't necessarily want to spoil it all. We will do a full review on this game at some point, at which point we will probably talk about the specifics of how the story mode plays out. But for this, we're kind of just doing a first reaction. I do, however, want to take a look at some of the punch-outs and the game board. So these are our punch-outs. So here's a Batman. Let's do this. So it slides right into the plastic stand easily enough. I do worry over time if we're going to be expected to pull these in and out a bunch of times that we don't start to tear up the artwork down at the bottom. Looks cool enough. I have no objections to that. We've got the Batman in the battle armor Standy. Now, I wonder if these standees will actually be necessary or not, given that I also have the version of this that has the minis. So these are, I'm not sure what these tokens are going to be used for in the actual game, but they're sturdy enough. They're not the thickest cardboard that I've ever seen, but I mean, it's quality. I have no complaints. Bridge closed, okay. Oh, these fire tokens look kind of cool. I like that a lot. And I actually really like this Superman standee. Wow. I think, so if this is your Batman and this is your Superman standee, I think this gives Superman the appropriately, like, he looks tougher. He looks more menacing than Batman. I think some of that's just to do with the size. Now, again, what I mentioned with the minis, I thought Superman was maybe a little on the small side. Okay, so there's a ton of things to punch out here, which I'm not going to sit here and do on camera. That would make some tedious content. And finally, yes, this game board is big. Wow. Okay. So this is maybe the size of a poster. It's probably as wide as a poster, but not quite as long. So you can see there, it's basically as wide as my playmat, and a little bit longer than it, but maybe not as long as you would expect, like a poster that you hang on your wall. The game board itself is very rigid and sturdy. It is a little busy. Oh, I bet these tokens are probably going to fit into these play spaces like so, these wedges. So I'll figure out what the game mechanics are and have a review of that next time we talk about this. There's a lot going on in this game board. So from this track over here that you're keeping track of stuff, this goes all the way down the board. Down here, there's a bunch of different, I'm guessing this is where piles of cards are going to be placed. Every single one of these spaces is subdivided. Now, just because the board looks busy, it doesn't necessarily mean that the mechanics that govern that busyness are super complex. I just don't know, but my first reaction here, I'm really impressed with the miniatures, but of course miniatures don't make a game. I do like the idea that I'm going to be throwing batarangs at my opponents, but I again acknowledge that putting bat wings on dice is a little bit of a gimmick. It doesn't really make a game. The packaging, the container for the whole thing looks great. I think it's going to look really cool on my shelf. It's practically a display piece in and of itself. That also does not make a game. And unfortunately, the places where I have a little bit of concern, like how busy the game board looks, the sheer volume of components, the way the rule book's divided up into 5 separate books, none of that is a great sign for a user-friendly, easy onboard learning experience. Now, I could be totally wrong. Again, I'm going to actually learn the game before I finalize any kind of criticism, but these are my first reactions. So overall, I'm really excited to play this. I like that it's built around a cool single-player mode. Solo gaming is something I've become more and more passionate about in recent years. I think a lot of people have over lockdown. So this one, it's hitting me in the sweet spot of Batman, a particular depiction of Batman that I really, really love, although I know Frank Miller's not the best person. I like the look of the components. I am hoping the gameplay matches up to the like, if you're going to mess with Dark Knight Returns, you owe it to all of us who love Dark Knight Returns to do it well. So far, the presentation, I think, is pretty impressive. I really am hoping that the gameplay hits the same mark. So I'm more excited now to play it than I was before I opened it, and that's really about the best compliment I can give to a game. Every once in a while, you'll open a game up, and it's like, I took all the time to set this up and now I'm less enthused. That's not the case here. I can't wait to get this to the table. So we'll be back at some point in the future with a full game review and a little bit more in-depth review of how the various game mechanics work and how this all is going to pack back into the box. So until next time, go win some games.